Okay, I just broke my remote mic, so I'm going to do it with this, and yeah, apologies again. Let's get underway. So my name is John Baekelmans. I work for Cisco about 20 years. I'm a Belgian citizen. Ik spreek Nederlands. Je parle aussi un peu de français, mais I'm going to do it in English because I haven't lived for years now in Belgium. I work mostly in the US, but I also have a global role to make these smart cities a reality these days. So let's look a little bit at what's happening in the world around smart cities in general. And if you look, the world is divided between the East and the West. And you see that on one side there is an aging and shrinking type of population. On the other side there is hyper-growth. And of course there is the challenge of green. There is a challenge of staying competitive in green. And on the other, and what you see is that the places where it's really hyper-growing, it's also another economy. You can see that the developing economies are really starting to get a lot faster and more profitable than the economies where we are typically living in here in the West. So what you're seeing is actually a two-pronged type of challenge and an approach. On the one side, and that's on the left-hand side of the slide, you see the aging and shrinking type of population here in the western part of the world, where the challenges are completely different than in the place where there is hypergrowth. And in the place where there is hypergrowth, typically the challenges of transportation, the challenges of energy management, the challenges of staying green while you're growing as a city, making sure that people keep getting energy into your city when your city is growing 2 or 3 times every 10 years. How do you keep up with that? And of course, today we're looking a little bit more at the transportation challenges as such. Now, with that, and I'm sure this is not a surprise to you, people are getting more connected. But not just people, also things. We call that not just things, we call those things everything, and I'll explain that in a second what that means. But basically, today we have about 13 billion things in the world connected. So the devices you have yourself are those things which are already connected to the network and to the internet. But now we're talking about connecting lights, we're talking about connecting chairs, we're talking about connecting cars, buses, signs on the roads, traffic lights. Those will all contribute to what we think in 5 years will be 50 billion connected devices. How do you deal with that? And the speed at which this adoption is growing is 5 times faster as the speed we've seen around electricity and telephony in the past. So you need a new type of infrastructure. And that infrastructure is key to a lot of the discussions you're going to hear later on today. Now, I talked about things, and things are, this is this hype about the Internet of Things, but it's not just things, because if you think about the things and about all the data which is going to get generated from those things, you need to start organizing a little bit more that data. So things together with the data is something very critical. If you just treat the information coming from the things as raw data, you're not going to get very far. You need to create information out of it, and you need to start also organizing your processes in a different way. Because if you use all this intelligence, if you use all these connected things, and if you keep on doing the way you have been doing things before, you're not going to make a change. You're not going to become more profitable. You're not going to become more efficient. And of course, you need to mix people into that mix. And the mix between people, process, data, and things, we call the Internet of Everything. And that's important because it's not about technology. The discussion is not about technology. It's about customer experience and what we call business outcomes. The business outcome of making sure that the traffic flows better into your city. The business outcome of making sure that wherever I am, I can take whatever mode of transport to get to my destination faster, quicker, cheaper, and at the same time, my city can keep on growing with the population, as you saw in the couple of first slides. That's what the Internet of Everything is going to talk about. Now, I want to just give you an idea of what that means. And if you think about connected parking, I'll talk to you about it in a second. But imagine that we connect every parking so that we know the availability of every parking slot in a garage, but also on the street. So we put sensors in every parking space. And we know in real time the availability of every space. And we have an application on our smartphone who can guide us to those open spaces without having to drive around for 3 hours or 2 hours or an hour for finding a particular parking space. By the way, 30% of the traffic in cities today is people trying to find parking. So this is a big issue. So if we can get our apps on our smartphones, and we all typically have one, telling us where to go when we go to that particular place, then we're going to win. We're going to create a new process. And we're going to create a new process not just for the citizens, but also for the city who is driving typically the exploitation of those parking spaces. And you're going to be able to drive dynamic pricing. Less availability of parking means a higher price. More pollution means a higher price. And of course, this is what typically drives this innovation around smart parking, because smart parking is one of the fastly adopted solutions in cities today because it brings in new revenue streams. And that's interesting. Because if it brings new revenue streams, people start to understand that the Internet of Things can drive good things for the citizens and for the city. And people are happy with those types of innovations. So you can see, bringing together things, data, process, and people can bring a net positive impact to many different players in that ecosystem in a city, whether you are a citizen, whether you are the city itself, or whether you are a stakeholder in that entire process. Now, the way we look at it, and this is what Cisco tries to do on a global scale, this is what I'm responsible for, is trying to drive a number of these innovations and what we call business outcomes across the entire city. And you cannot do that at one time. You cannot do that at once. This is not a revolution, this is an evolution. And every city is different. Every city has different challenges. Where do you start with? What is your biggest challenge in your city? Is it traffic? Is it crime? It all depends on what your priorities are. But basically, we're trying to create this horizontal type of approach where you lay a foundation of connectivity, and we'll talk about that later, and then you can plug in the individual solutions which will solve one issue at a time. If you want to first solve your parking, then you're going to first solve your parking. If you want to first solve your traffic flow, you're going to solve your traffic flow. If you want to solve general connectivity for your citizens, you can solve that first. But you also need to do it always in an architectural type of way, because if you do it in an architectural type of approach, you can grow with your demands, you can grow with your needs, and you don't put all these individual solutions next to each other without them being connected as such. Okay, one of the most appealing cities, and I've been working with them for 5 years now, there is a big Smart City Congress going on today and tomorrow actually, is the city of Barcelona. It speaks to many of us. We probably have been there, and they've been adopting a number of these solutions over the last 5 years across the city. Talking about smart lighting, smart buses, smart water, smart bus stops, and so on. I can give you, you can look at it later today, but at the end of the day, it brought them an amazing type of evolution in their city. They've generated about 50,000 jobs from this. They've saved, for example, on their parking, they've saved 67 million euros just by rolling out smart parking across their city. They have saved in their smart water deployments. The way they now irrigate their parks is very different than the way they've been doing it before. They've been saving millions of euros by making those things smarter. Have they done this all at once? No. They've done it bit by bit, step by step, depending upon their priority. Now, another city we're working on is the city of Hamburg. I just want to show you a small video of what the different type of pressures are in the city of Hamburg. And then you'll see that every city has a little bit different type of approach.
Here in Hamburg, they have all the ingredients for the Internet of Everything. They have a great infrastructure and one network. They are very well known around the world as the second largest port in Europe. Perhaps they're going to be the first. The port of Hamburg is one of the economic strength. 10,000 ships a year come in and go out. They have one network for collaboration, connecting people, process, data and things.
The Internet of Everything is the critical enabler for the future.
In that partnership between Hamburg and Cisco, there is a revolution coming, a digital revolution.
Hamburg is very keen with the smart city concept to improve quality of life for the citizens, but also to create an environment where they can stimulate innovation, generate economic value and competitive advantage.
The concept of smart city will really help the citizens having a better quality of life. Information coming from the detectors, which are embedded on the streets, could be sent directly to the center so that the port road management operator could really monitor traffic flow and could take reaction in the proper manner.
We connect moving bridges with traffic management to increase the traffic flow in the port. When a ship is coming, the bridge will open. You can reroute the traffic to another road.
I think that Hamburg is really going to develop as a seatropolis.
We have the challenge to get more containers through the port of Hamburg. The technology is the main enabler for this opportunity.
We have GPS sensors in this container terminal. This kind of smart control operations could really optimize workflows and capacities.
With Hafen City, we are developing the most important inner city project. It is expanding Hamburg by roughly 40%. We are trying to increase the efficiency of car use and of other devices of individual mobility.
We have sensoring spots on the parking lots, so you get directly on your smartphone if the parking slot is already occupied. The Smart City initiatives really help the operations in the city.
Hamburg can act as a stimulator for cities in Germany and across Europe to come up with a similar innovation and have leaders stepping up to drive the concept of Internet of Everything and the digitalization of their business.
We make a contract with Cisco in mobility, in infrastructure. I am quite happy and a bit proud that we are in a partnership with Cisco, and it is important for both of us.
So you can see that the challenge of Hamburg is a different one than the challenge of Barcelona. It's the fact that Hamburg has basically a port which is very close to the city, and there is a big impact on the traffic through and from the port for the city. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that as a city? How do you deal with, you know, the pollution coming from all the cruise liners lining up 300 meters from the center of your city? How do you deal with that? How do you give them dynamic taxing as the city of Hamburg versus giving them one tax to come into the port, no matter how big or small that ship is? So that's the type of things we're working on with Hamburg. Very exciting things to happen there. Now, just to make sure that you understand, and that's why we're all here, I think, the top priority for cities is still one of transportation. Apparently, the World Economic Forum, this is a 2009, I think we did do another type of survey, but World Economic Forum 2009 is one where it's very clear that transportation is one of those main challenges in a city. So if you look at all the different areas in a city, these are the type of areas we then look at. It's not just roads, it's the entire ecosystem within a city, going from a port, an airport, the rail system, all of those things combined, and you really need to try to make sure that all of those things combined are working in unison to create a uniform type of business outcome for the people coming and going to your city. Now, you need to start somewhere. And the reason why we've started developing with a number of partners, for example, the parking solution, is because it's one of the primary priorities basically to solve within the cities of today. So the parking I've talked to you about, there's a number of stakeholders who want to get benefits from parking, and basically it's a very simple system. You either use sensoring on the roads, or you use cameras. Cameras can do the same thing like video sensor, like parking sensors, excuse me. They can use some smart technology within the camera to basically detect cars, trucks, whatever. And then you use an application, typically on a smartphone or whatever type of device you have, to let you know where you can park. The same application you can do pricing. The same application you can do availability and, for example, reservation of parking slots tied to a retail type of connection. Are you okay? All right. So parking is one of those initial enablers for cities to really make the city smarter. Now, it's not just parking. Traffic flows is the next one. And traffic flow, if I remember the times I was in Belgium, traffic is always an issue coming to and from Brussels. And if I look around these places here, Schumann and all that stuff, it's always a mess. How do you deal with that mess? How do you make that traffic flow much smoother and better, even if you think that you're going to have an increase of traffic for 40%? Well, the initial priority for the cities we have been dealing with is to deal with traffic incidents. How can we predict that an incident is going to happen on my roads? How do I know that a traffic incident might occur? How can I ensure that if that incident occurs, that I already have taken the measures to reroute the traffic or to get the emergency people on board even before the incident has happened? And that's what I'm talking about with traffic incident management. And again, by some smart technology into your roads, flow sensors, combined with some camera technology, you can do a lot of things. And this is not meaning that you have to completely tear up your streets and put new infrastructure in. You can add it on to your current environment and make your city smarter as you go, bit by bit. Now, it's very clear that moving forward, the infrastructure is going to become more important. Smart infrastructure is going to become more important. Connected infrastructure is going to become more important. Traffic lights which talk to cars. Because if you think about it, cars have an evolution. There's one guy who made sure that the software version of my car is only 7 hours old or 7 minutes old. And that's Elon Musk. Think about how old the software in your car is. Just calculate the age of your car and then take another 2 to 3 years. And then just think how old you're actually driving or how inefficient you actually are from a software perspective of your car. Think about that Elon Musk, with one software upgrade, he can make your car self-driving. He can make sure that your car starts to connect with the infrastructure on the roads. And that's what we're doing today. We're doing a lot of stuff today to actually make the infrastructure smarter so that our cars can start to react themselves without us having in the loop and actually make smarter decisions for us. And that's becoming much more important. Now, there is a number of test beds, and one of the test beds is in San Jose, which is in Silicon Valley. I can tell you there's a lot more traffic there. And in Silicon Valley is one of those places where multimodal transport type of test beds with a whole number of companies are happening. We're sponsoring those things, and we're testing a lot of those innovations in places where it really matters and where there's a lot of support for those types of innovations. This project is one of them. Now, to finish, I have 1 minute and 39 seconds. To finish my discussion, if we're going to think about solving some of these issues from a transportation perspective, you don't just look at one particular thing. You don't just look at a smart car. You need to look at a number of areas which are working together in an architecture, whether those are vehicles, whether that's the infrastructure in the field, whether those are the travels themselves, whether those are the information centers. They will all have to unite in a joint architecture to be able to run smoothly and to be able to give you the business outcomes we really want to have in our cities. Last but not least, we need a secure architecture. Because imagine if you connect your car, imagine that your car is now exposed to IT systems and technologies. If you don't make that connectivity smart and secure, we might get in trouble. And that's what many people are worried about in the context of these connected cars. And that was all I wanted to say. I thank you for your time, and I wish you a nice day.
Thank you very much indeed, John. Thank you so much.